Hello everyone, Hezu here, and as mentioned a long while ago, 2019 has been very chaotic for me. And apparently, I'm not the only one, since I've seen a couple other YouTubers post videos about their hard times this year too. But mine has been pretty crazy. So much so, I kept asking the universe, what's next? What's next month's event? I started getting excited for them. Because what else am I supposed to do? Panic and cry like a normal person? As if. Now, what were these events? I'm glad you asked. Prepare yourselves for one roller coaster of a ride that was my 2019. This was indeed a cursed year. January. My car got destroyed. It was the middle of winter, and where I live, instead of snow, we basically get mini hurricanes. Just crazy wind and sideways rain, along with freezing temperatures for hours on end. It was pretty bad. To make matters worse, I live in a place with a lot of cypress pine trees. They were put there as a windbreak for the nearby park, but now, decades later, the wind is breaking them. They shed their branches so easily because they are top-heavy and don't want to get uprooted. These are basically Santa's chaotic Christmas trees. They've been nothing but an inconvenience to my entire town. I think we'd like to be rid of them entirely. Unfortunately, removing just a couple branches off a large trunk could rack up to $3,000, so obviously my dream of being rid of these tall bastards is far, far from my reach. Anyhow, the wind was particularly bad that day and snapped a large cypress branch that fell directly on top of my car, totaling it. It was exactly 10 a.m. that this happened, the day after my spring semester started. I woke up to a large bang outside and shot out of bed with the heavy pounding on my front door that followed. Still in my pajamas, I walked up and opened the door to my frantic neighbor, who informed me my car got crushed. Now keep in mind, I just woke up. I was out of it. But I got my jacket and shoes and walked out to see the damage. Top of the car was completely crushed. Back windshield completely shattered. Front had a large hole in it. The firewall was pierced, and there was still a large branch still dangling above, still attached to the tree. Now, I didn't know if my car could be saved or not, since I'm new to this whole getting your car destroyed thing. And if there was even a chance of it not being totaled, then I wanted to make sure it wouldn't take any more damage. The park ranger called some of his friends, and they immediately came over to saw apart the branch and push it off what was left of my roof. So I immediately grabbed my keys and hopped into the car. There was water and glass everywhere, and the roof was bent inward, but to my surprise, the car turned on, and I backed it into my driveway. Why didn't I park in the driveway in the first place, you ask? Because my family owns 5.5 vehicles. We don't have space. I have no choice but to park across the street, and parking it too far away isn't a good idea because we have car thief incidents closing in on our area. Anyway, it was still pouring rain at this point. The rangers lent me some bungee cords and a tarp to protect my car from further water damage in the process. Meanwhile, my parents came home and, needless to say, they were not happy. Me, on the other hand, I had a smile on my face the entire time. I had a little blue umbrella and goofy socks and PJs. I mean, what are the odds that this would happen on such a weird day? Strangely common for my family. Newton's law is a curse we must endure more often than we realize. But when everything goes wrong, instead of getting upset, I laugh. It's like a sitcom. I had the ranger take my picture by it and everything. I'll explain later why I'm so positive, but I was a little nervous and shocked over all this on the inside. Everyone around me was feeling so bad for me, but instead of being upset with them, I just smiled and did my best to assure everyone I was okay. I have friends. I have a family. There's a city bus. I don't have a boatload of classes this semester. I knew I had a support group, and we have car insurance, so I haven't lost everything just yet. Old Gray was an old car, a Honda Civic 2007. She worked nicely for me when it came to travel, but the windows stopped working a few months before her demise. Can't have it all, though. There was some electrical problem which drained her battery, so she didn't last through the night. But we got an inspector 2 weeks later to record her information, and he told us immediately it was totaled for sure. In hindsight, the insurance we got was pretty decent, very reasonable, but the deductible was still pretty high. So I thought I'd maybe write the county for some compensation if they could help me out, since I'm just a student trying to go to school and get a job. But my family kind of stepped in and demanded I ask for more because of emotional distress and park mismanagement, since this has been happening too often. I didn't feel comfortable about it, but I did it. I doubted they'd even reply to me. Unfortunately, they did. They got extremely pushy about it, too. They were demanding my insurance information, but my insurance needed my permission to release said information. It was just a lot of back and forth without consulting me until the very end. I got a call from the county saying my claim has been denied and that my Civic wasn't really a good car to have picked in the first place. Just very passive-aggressive that really upset my family. It was at that point I started to feel the stress get to me. It was February, then March, and April, and not having a car for a few months made me depressed. I'm an introvert. I don't really go anywhere, but just knowing you no longer have the ability to go anywhere you want, I don't know. It's not fun. I was looking into used cars that I could buy with the money I was given, but it was not much at all. But lucky for me, I'm crazy privileged to have a loving grandma that offered to pitch in and buy me a brand new car. I was nervous at first since this is such a big present she was offering me, and buying a new car is basically like having to meet the devil. I didn't want to get it wrong or buy a car I wasn't satisfied with. I went to a couple dealerships and ultimately got wrapped into an extremely stressful buying process on a reasonable base model car. A couple months of having it, and I know I made the right choice. But I am not going back to that dealership. Those people are demons. But anyway, I got a new car. His name is Silver, even though he's colored white. You want to know why I named him that? Because he doesn't have a CD player and prefers to use a psychic Bluetooth connection when playing music. Wink, wink. To rub salt in my wounds, though, I forgot to transfer my college parking pass on my new car and got a ticket for it. Even though I got the car literally yesterday and was running late to class, the county yet again denied my challenge form and charged me $41 for it. I'm still bitter, but I can't really do anything about it. I'm only going to wish that the people at the county who looked over my situations have every single vehicle of theirs crushed by trees for the rest of their days. The storm also broke our backyard gate lock and toppled our fence, too. Needed to contact the landlord for that. He eventually got all that fixed as well. But, talk about stressful. But my grandma and landlord really saved the day. Speaking of my grandma, she's unfortunately the next segment of this video. So that car situation went on for quite a few months. I'd say it ended near April or Mayish, which leaves the month of June. That month, I went to visit my lovely grandma a few states over. See, I had visited her last December, and we had both caught a terrible flu. We were glued to our beds for 2 weeks. It was the worst sickness I've ever had. So I was delighted to visit her again when we were healthy and happy. And the first week, things were going great. She's upbeat and a busy bee like usual. I'm over 60 years younger than her, and she was exhausting me. I could barely keep up. Then came Sunday. It seemed like a normal morning, but Graham was acting a little strange. After we ate breakfast and we were set to head out to her church to meet some friends, she turned to me and said, "Hezu, I don't mean to freak you out, but I need you to take me to the hospital." Now, my gram knows I'm susceptible to panic attacks, so she did her best to stay calm so I wouldn't freak out. Unfortunately, my heart rate did accelerate, but the hospital was across the street, so it would be a quick drive and she'd get immediate care. She explained to the hospital that she had internal bleeding. She wasn't sick or dizzy or anything, but She was someone who's had digestive problems for a long time now, and she felt something was clearly wrong. The doctors wouldn't be able to see her until the next day, unfortunately, because they were so backed up, but she was in a bed and doing okay, so I went back to her apartment for the night. The next morning, my phone was getting spammed. I had texted our friend at church that we wouldn't be coming, that I needed to take my gram to the hospital, which, in hindsight, was probably not the best idea. She had apparently lit a candle in prayer for my Gram's safety and health in front of the whole church. Now, my Gram is a well-known celebrity of her community, and everyone knows the closest people to her are two people I consider to be my uncles. All heads in the room immediately turned toward them. And they had no idea what was going on because I didn't text them about it. So I basically trapped them there for a few hours before they could even make their way towards the hospital to visit. So, sorry about that, guys. Anywho, I visited Gram and we waited together until the doctors could come in and discuss scanning and treatment. During this talk, Gram's phone was ringing, but she couldn't pick it up since we were busy. She was going to get a full colonoscopy, so she had a restrictive diet and all that. It was a lot to take in. But she likes to say a busy woman, so she quickly called back the people who called her. I hear her become exasperated. The phone call ends, and she looks to me and says, "Hezu, I need you to go downstairs for me. Grandpa is in the emergency room." What? Her husband, my grandpa, is in the emergency room in the same hospital downstairs from us. So, context. My grandpa stays in a different section of the retirement apartment facility my grandma lives in. It's a section for skilled nursing for the elderly that need mental or physical help in their day-to-day life. So if something is off, they immediately respond. Grandpa was apparently not breathing right. He has a condition where his back is hunched, so he needs to be put on oxygen every now and then because his breathing is limited. He was acting a little off the past few days, but nothing extremely concerning, I guess. But yeah, they hooked him up to machines and were readying a chest x-ray, and they put him into a medically induced coma so that they could shove a tube down his throat so he could breathe. It was a mess. Now, it turns out he got pneumonia again. And when I say again, we're talking like the 9th time. Yeah, this guy is crazy with pneumonia. He gets it almost every other year. We thought we might lose him from it a few times, though, but he healed each and every time. But this was the first time they ever used a tube like this. The doctors asked me for his directive, his paperwork for how far do we want them to go to resuscitate him. I did not know this information. The nurses at his facility should have had his paperwork on file and ready to print for the ambulance team immediately before he left. So this was very frustrating. My uncles set off to get the paperwork, and it took them a freaking half hour to find and print the paper. But guess what? The front desk gave them the wrong one. The paperwork said not to revive him. That was the 2014 one, not the 2019 one. My Gram doesn't need this stress. She needs to worry about herself. I mean, my gosh. Trust me, guys, this is nothing new. You're going to end up in a hospital or care facility at some point in your life, and every one you'll ever go to is this disorganized. Just be mindful to lower your standards when walking in through these sliding doors. Anyhow, we managed to get the right paperwork in the end. I mean, they already plugged him in and everything. They wouldn't cease his treatment right then and there since they've already started, thank God. Meanwhile, I'm back with my grandma, and we are acting like phone receptionists for the next 3 hours. My phone is ringing, Gram's phone is ringing, the hospital room phone is ringing. The nurse comes in every half hour to check in. Everyone is checking in on her, checking in with her about Grandpa, checking in with me to see if we need anything or wishing us the best. I mean, it was all heartwarming, but also really stressful since my Gram has so many friends and supporters. She asked me if I wanted to go home, as in home, with my family, a few states over. But are you kidding me? I'm not leaving you in your time of need. Sure, all this gives me anxiety, but I'm gonna stay positive. You've been strong for me, and you can bet I'll be strong for you. Gram was trapped in a hospital, but her nurses were fun and very helpful. Her room was clean and spacious. Meanwhile, I went back to the apartment and became showered with supportive love from all her friends. They took me to lunch, to dinner, kept me company, took me to a movie. Keep in mind, these are all older grandparents that have grandchildren of their own to dote on. But I was in the immediate vicinity and grandma-less, so I was basically up for grabs and got fought over.
It's free real estate.
Fun times those were. I was spoiled. Well, Grandpa was stabilized, but he was still in a coma. I went up to visit him and Grandma every day. I was racking up the hospital wristbands. They covered my entire arm. People were starting to recognize me by name at the hospital. It made me super shy. Also, this hospital was brand spanking new and extremely large. I got lost multiple times. After a few days, though, I finally mapped out certain sections of this crazy maze to get to my prizes. I threatened Grandpa while he was asleep. I told him if he kicks the nurses, he won't get any more cookies. I told him they were real cute young ladies who just want to help him, so he needs to be nice and let them wake him up when he's ready. There was a moment where I almost slipped a tear, and seeing him in that bed plugged into so many different things was dizzying to look at. My grandma was actually released from the hospital. They couldn't find out what the heck was wrong with her. And she felt strange, so I was forced to bring her back. Poor woman's veins were all blown because of so many needles she had to endure. She was not happy to be back at that place. She was at her wit's end. They still never found anything and just let her go home. I was supposed to leave the next day, and she saw me off. My flight home went smoothly, and I was happy I had stayed with her through all that. I was proud at how well I handled myself, too. It made me feel very grown up. The next day, I was happy to hear Grandpa woke up. He followed commands and was even smiling and eating. I was so glad he didn't pass away just yet. Visiting him was always such a big part of my grandma's day. We'd always read to him and bring him cookies and movies. We were basically his personal entertainment. Letting that go would be really hard on my grandma, and I certainly wouldn't want those visits to end so soon. My grandma took another week or two to fully feel like herself again. When you leave a car running too long and decide to shut it off, sometimes you can't start it back up again because it doesn't have enough energy. I think that might have been what happened to Gram. She's someone always on the go, and the moment she stops, she crashes. Whatever happened was a bit of a mystery, but what matters is she and my grandpa are both alive and well. July went by okay, I think, but August had another thing for me to deal with. August 19th, the day after my birthday, I got my wisdom teeth removed. While I was conscious. I made the decision to stay awake because it was cheaper, so I thought I'd tough it out. Big mistake. 8 shots of Novocaine all throughout my mouth. Felt the pinch of each one. Your body raises its heart rate when reacting to Novocaine sometimes, but also paired with my anxiety, I started feeling very ill. I most definitely was having a panic attack. I was sweaty, dizzy, and absolutely terrified shaking in that chair. They noticed and gave me a blanket and some oxygen, which helped. After about a 10-minute wait for the numbing agent to set in, the surgeon came over and asked me if I'd like to stop. I looked at him with murder in my eyes and said, "Are you kidding me? You shot me 8 times with this crap and think I'm gonna wuss out? Let's get this show on the road." Apparently, plenty of people have full-on screaming freakouts when they get to this point. So the dentists were impressed with my determination, to say the least. I was still a nervous wreck, though. I found closing my eyes to be a comfort, so I didn't have to see any bloody gloves in my line of vision. For the most part, the surgery went pretty well. I felt no pain, just a lot of pressure against my jaw. The only sort of pain I felt was from the high-pitched screeching of the saw in my mouth. My bottom two were impacted, close to my nerve. There was a chance I could lose all feeling in my lower jaw if they were damaged, so to go the safe route, they had to cut them. But oh god, the saw! That was the worst part, really. It felt like they stuck that saw deep into my ear canal and buzzed it right next to my drum, rattling the inside of my brain. It was quite literally torture. PSA, kids. If you're getting your wisdom teeth removed, please get gassed. I don't care if it's more expensive or creepy. Trust me, it's the better option. When it was all said and done, the dentist praised me well for my diligence, but I was white as a ghost and sick like C when I sat up. I was dizzy and ill, and I could barely stand. I got to the car and threw up multiple times. Apparently, if blood touches your stomach, your body immediately feels the need to puke. So, if you do throw up after surgery, I'd consider that normal, as unfortunate as it is. They sent me home and gave me a pain pill subscription, which, in hindsight, the scheduling for my dentistry work couldn't have been worse because my pharmacy closed for the weekend. So I was 2 days without pain meds, which I cannot describe the feeling. But I couldn't function. My face was solid, just 2 gigantic rocks. I couldn't even open my mouth half an inch, it was that bad. My brother had 2 pain pills left over from his operation, which he got a couple months earlier. They did take away the pain for a few hours, but they made me horribly dizzy, so I didn't bother with them. But I finally got my meds, and frankly, they didn't really help me much either, so I didn't take them. 2 weeks of applesauce and pea soup later, I could finally eat again. So that was an ordeal. Definitely not a fun experience. I'd say wisdom teeth removal was my 3rd worst experience in my life. I actually don't have a 2nd worst experience yet, but I just know there's something worse out there waiting for me. And I'll be ready waiting for it. I also found out later that my favorite artist, Leonid Afremov, died the same day I got my operation. I was really sad to hear that. He was such a great man. I hope to buy an original painting of his someday. He was such an inspiration to me. His family and team still run his website, though, so if you want to support his students and family after his passing, I'd check them out. I bought a recreation, and it's hanging above my bed as we speak. It's nice to wake up to it every morning. So, that was the August ordeal. My birth month of all months was quite crazy. But then came September. My driver's license expired a few months ago. I hadn't really done any driving, thank God, and I'm always such a careful driver who does her best to be passive and careful, but this was a horrible, big problem. I received no notice of renewal. I received no warning of this expiration. I tried to make an appointment online with the DMV. I wouldn't be able to get an appointment until February of next year. That's freaking 5 months from then. I called, and the call wait was 1 hour and 20 minutes. There was nothing I could do. Lucky for me, I have a mom. She told me, let's just go. Go? To the DMV. Now? Now. It was 3 p.m. on a Wednesday. They closed in like 2 hours. There was no way I could get this renewed in that amount of time. But honestly, what else did I have to lose? So, she drove me over. There was no line to my shock. I had brought all my paperwork and told the helpers exactly what I needed. I was given a number and a short quiz and sat down for about 1 hour until I was called up. They told me they sent out notice. But not only that, my new driver's license was paid for, and the new one was even sent to me. What the hell? None of that was true. The desk guy had to get his manager because the situation was so odd. He asked if I had someone at home who maybe paid the bill without my knowledge. That sounded very wrong. I would have known about it. But later, when I went home and asked my dad, he claimed he thought he did, but failed to tell me. I don't know. I never got to the bottom of this. But the circumstances are too strange to be identity theft. But in the end, they renewed it to me no problem. I got a temporary paper one for my car, and we left with a half hour till the place closed. I threw myself onto my mom and thanked her a bunch for convincing me to take this chance. My dumb introverted self would have stayed home and moped if I hadn't taken that chance. 2 weeks later, I got my new one in the mail. I don't like the picture as much as I did my old one, but I couldn't care less as long as I'm legally able to drive again. Goodbye, September. Hello, October. You want to hear something scary? Almost every aspect of our society is rapidly shifting into being run by corrupt corporate monopolies. When should we panic? Now. Nothing says spooky like PG&E power outages. In case you haven't heard, I live in California, and we had a really, really devastating fire up north a few years ago because of a power line. PG&E got sued, and instead of pushing forth plans to ground their power lines instead of raising them, they decided to shut off California's power completely for a few days. The weather was hot and dry with a high risk of fire, so the company thought it was best if they just shut down everything to avoid another catastrophe, like losing their money. But these idiots failed to realize that they'd lose even more money because shutting down power means grocery loss. Businesses close and lose money. Traffic lights are out and no traffic direction means car accidents. My brother went to a talk session 40 minutes away that day, the crazy man, and he witnessed over 7 accidents, almost one per intersection, and he even almost got into one himself. This crap happened multiple times throughout this month, and my dad and brother are IT workers. Tech is their life, and without it, they have nothing. So needless to say, they were pissed. The two immediately started building power walls and bought generators and solar charging tech, typing away at their computers on the kitchen table. Meanwhile, little old me was walking through the hallways with my Fox Firefly lamp like it was the 1700s searching for my drawing book. Some of the outages lasted up to 30 or 40 hours, almost 2 days straight. We had to power our fridge to keep the food from spoiling. My dad canceled work a few times simply because it was too dangerous to drive outside. I swear, the first day, I heard a siren every single hour the first half of the day. It was insane. A big, horrible mess that will happen again. This is California. Our fire danger warning has been at high levels for years. We catch on fire year-round. This place is basically hell. We certainly haven't heard the last of these outages, so if I was you, I'd get me some generators, pal. When the companies fail you, it's every man for himself. November went by bumpy. My dog started licking her foot profusely, but my mom and I couldn't figure out what was wrong. I walked her regularly, so she was prone to burrs, but this was on the top of her foot, and it had healed over, so we weren't sure what was going on. Sooner or later, it turned purple and swollen, and at that point, we panicked. Our poor baby had a foxtail embedded into her skin from the top down. It had to be flushed out, and we had to put her on antibiotics for the next few weeks. It took her 2 long weeks to fully heal from that thing, but seeing your best friend in such terrible pain without knowing what's wrong until a little too late, it was hard. We ended up buying her shoes, which she is still coming to terms with. They're reflective and they light up. They're pretty sick. Plus, she won't track mud in the house anymore. Hallelujah. But yeah, those damn foxtail burrs really made me and my dog's November pretty rough. And finally, December. I knew something was coming. I was expecting it. After a whole year of nothing but trouble each and every month, you think I wouldn't pick up on the pattern? Sure enough, that day came. December 16th, my grandma's birthday. I called her and we all sang her happy birthday. She asked us how we were, and I said we were great. I forgot to knock on wood when I said that. I hang up. 10 minutes later, I drink some water. It goes down the wrong pipe. I cough and choke on the ground, struggling to get that cursed liquid out of my lungs. 10 minutes later, I hear pained yelling from the other room. 10 minutes later, I was supposed to leave for a dance class session with my friend. We've got things going on every which way. My mind was so lost. But let's get back to the important part, shall we? The pained yelling. My father's back is not in good condition, and he had bent down to pick something up off the floor. He heard a crack, and he basically went down. He was laying on the couch. His entire body went numb. He was nauseous and delirious, just kept repeating he was numb over and over. I knew we immediately needed to call an ambulance. My mom phoned it in, and they came to examine him. He came to a few minutes later, but he was still in terrible pain. He couldn't stand. He had a weird pain in his lower backside, which wasn't normal, so he was worried an organ could have been damaged or something weird. He had his gallbladder removed a while ago. Oh God, that might have been this year too. Am I forgetting things? So he was very nervous something might be wrong with his kidney. Luckily, it was nothing of the sort. A muscle must have seized up his backbone and sent the nerves aflare, I guess. I went dancing and saw my parents home safe near midnight a few hours later, but it was still quite a scare. And 2019 had to go out with a bang when it came to testing my patience. The last week of it, I went to my grandma's. I was supposed to go from San Francisco to Denver, Colorado, and then from there to Milwaukee. Nope, couldn't. The second half of the flight to Denver was canceled. Luckily, the desk people were very helpful and immediately gave me 3 options. The second one was most viable, but was a very long, complicated one that gave me panic attacks the entire first half of the day. I had to wait 4 hours for my first flight from San Francisco to LA. In the LA airport, I kept hearing, "Please enjoy our lovely city," about 10 times within a 2-hour period. I kept looking outside with a dead-eyed look on my face. Oh, if only I could enjoy the view of your city. Too bad it's covered in smoke and smog. From LA, I traveled to Phoenix and waited about an hour on that plane for them to load it up again. From there, we finally carried on to Milwaukee. I woke up at 3:30 a.m. and didn't get to my grandma's until 7:15 p.m. I was sleep-deprived and a nervous wreck because my anxiety skyrockets when it comes to airports, so that was tricky to deal with, but miraculously, I managed. The weather was rainy, but we had no trouble landing, luckily. And one major highlight of the trip, I would say, would be the final stretch. For you see, a lady asked to sit next to me, and she just so happened to have a dog with her. A tiny, nervous chihuahua named Cooper. She was his emotional support human. They watched Harry Potter during the whole flight until they both fell asleep. It was adorable and really made up for my rough day. And when I get off the plane, I saw a woman carrying a bag of 30 baguettes, and I felt like that was such a mood. So, 2019 was rough. Honestly, though, I've had my fair share of trauma before this year, and I've learned how to manage it. I found that a situation turns out far better if you simply stay calm and don't panic about it. And it totally did. This may have been the worst year for me, yet somehow everything bad turned out for the better. My car got destroyed, but I got a new one. My grandparents were hospitalized, but they recovered in record timing. My wisdom teeth were removed, but I don't have to worry about impacted teeth anymore. Power went out, but we got generators. My license expired, but I renewed it with no trouble. Everything has just fallen into place. I'm a very privileged person to have had the luck and support that got me through this year. I really could not have done this without my friends, family, and neighbors. I've never been more grateful that I have them. I sincerely hope you guys have people in your life that make things all the better too. And I really hope 2020 is our year. It's an even number. Even numbers are lucky. And it's a new decade. A sequel to the Roaring 20s. Get out the jazz and swing, everybody. We'll be roaring for a better future. Really, though, with each new year, the most important thing to note, change is inevitable, and it's two sides of the same coin. People will die this year. People will be born this year. You might get laid off or you might get hired. Bad changes will always happen, but good changes will always happen too. You just need to notice them. You can get through it. I believe in you. Anyway, happy 2020, everyone. Put on your glasses for a clear and bright future, and look forward to seeing more videos from me in the future. Have a great day and Happy New Year!